So now, as many on the left fear the future, as they should, many others rue the past.
Joe Biden should have dropped out earlier.
There should have been an open primary.
People never got to know Kamala Harris.
They spend too little time talking about the economy.
Wildly overestimated the power of the abortion issue.
Chose the wrong VP.
Managed to alienate historic numbers of Latinos.
Abandon the working class.
Democrats need a new way to talk about urban America.
Do that Joe Rogan podcast.
Now, first of all, let's talk about a few points here, okay? President Biden did not step down earlier because mainstream media kept saying that he was fine. This is your fault. Y'all kept saying that the guy was sharp as a tack. And a primary? You're now talking about a primary now? Republicans question how Kamala became the presidential nominee off of a technicality. But you got Nancy Pelosi coming out the woodwork basically saying that the party actually had a primary and that no one ran against Kamala. Nancy Pelosi is also saying that Joe Biden is the fault for everything that's wrong with the Democratic Party right now for not giving way to his VP much earlier in the race so that a proper primary could have been done. Yeah, it's funny how everyone's now turning their back and abandoning Joe Biden. It's kind of sad, kind of feel bad for the guy. Now, I wish I was kidding with these statements, guys, but they're actually saying this stuff. In fact, the same way mainstream liberal media is breaking down as we speak. You notice how many of the things that they said were called out by Republicans. The same can now be said for many voters that felt as if they were being gaslit, which now leads me to talk about a very big problem with these networks, guys. Viewers are now turning out. MSNBC is one that's greatly affected by this huge wake-up call that's happening right now. Their ratings are collapsing and people are probably getting fired. I mean, you've got Ari Melber, Chris Hayes, Alex Wagner, Stephanie Ruhle, Andrea Mitchell, Joy Reid, and that Morning Joe show dropping in viewership, guys. Now, as you can see, almost all of them have plunged by around 40% and more. And there's not much to question here. I mean, here's Joy Reid talking about Kamala Harris's campaign as she was trampled by Donald Trump in the votes. Watch.
And I think it's important to say that, you know, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. You know, I mean, she had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swiftie to the Swifties. She had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
Now, I hate to break it to you, Joy, but having celebrities endorse you is not the best look in 2024. Guess she didn't get the memo. Especially celebrities who tend to be connected to rappers who love a whole lot of baby oil too much. You know what I mean? So I think it's pretty safe to say that her run was far from flawless. But this is how she wants to describe Kamala's campaign, even though they're $20 million in debt, by the way. No wonder viewers are turning off their TVs. Joy Reid, much like many of these hosts, they live in a liberal wonderland. And on that note, guys, did you guys hear what's happening with CNN? So the network is now deciding as to which high-paid staffs are actually going to remove after their election ratings fell through. Oh man, the layoffs are hitting CNN, it seems. So this comes after Chris Wallace's departure, guys, along with reports that senior talent like Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer have been denied raises. Now, at the moment, we know of 3 personalities within CNN that's making off with millions of dollars a year. Anderson Cooper sitting at $20 million a year, Aaron Burnett at $6 million a year, and Caitlin Collins still raking in a sweet $3 million annually. At the moment, we're not really sure if any of these people will be part of the layoffs or even getting fired. Either that, or maybe they can expect pay cuts to start happening as they lose even more viewers. Who knows? Back in 2016, CNN was the most viewed network during the election. Millions of viewers have strayed away from the network since then, though. From 13.3 million viewers back then to less than 1 million this year. And just to add a little bit of salt to the wound, Fox News hosts like Laura Ingraham, Jesse Waters, Sean Hannity, McAfee and Greg Gutfeld, they're all averaging almost 3 million views within the same time slots. And it's not just them that's struggling. I mentioned MSNBC just a while ago, and things might actually be worse for them. Comcast president Mike Cavanaugh, he announced the possibility of MSNBC possibly being sold off. And it's now becoming apparent that even they knew that things were out of their control. Watch.
You've always been sort of the leading edge of where media is going with Politico, now with Axios. You understand the environment so well. How do Democrats, and frankly, how does legacy media need to change the way it thinks about getting information? I mean, a lot of the voters who went out and voted for Donald Trump, that so many people are wondering what happened here, they're not watching, frankly, this show. They're not reading the New York Times. They're not consuming media that way. And the Trump campaign found those voters where they live. So how do Democrats need to change the way they communicate to voters, if you think that's part of the problem?
For sure. I mean, I think all of us have to come to grips with legacy media is just not as important as it thinks it is. It is to you, it is to me. That's a relatively small group of people who rely on us for their information. And you have to go into the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. And basically, the way people get information is shattered into 20, 30 different pieces. And so if you just look empirically at the numbers, Joe Rogan's more important than any of us. He just has a much bigger, hyper-connected audience that listens to his every word. So maybe listen to Joe Rogan and try to understand, like, what is he talking about? What are the guests that he has on? What are the issues that they care about?
So I guess gaslighting millions of Americans every single day without like taking a break didn't help them gain as much popularity. Who would have thought that would have worked out that way? And if you read between the lines, you're going to hear them say the quiet part out loud. They have to focus on providing us with facts rather than propaganda. Because of the existence of the First Amendment and all these different social media platforms, the truth has never been easier to find. And this is why I feel like so many people have been subscribing to this channel, because that's all we're going to do here. The truth. None of this other BS that they've been peddling in the media. Appreciate y'all hitting the like button and all that good YouTube-y stuff. But seriously, guys, and common sense would tell you that as journalists, it's your job to provide the people with the truth. Like, did the journalists themselves sell out as well? Unbelievable. This is the exact reason as to why these networks are struggling right now. It isn't about the left or the right. All it boils down to is who's providing us with the truth and avoiding all this other nonsense. But what do you guys think about legacy media at the moment? Can they survive, or are they just going to all just, go down the wayside? But since Elon Musk brought back the First Amendment on X, they're pissed.
Obviously, Elon Musk has played a huge part. Obviously, he paid it $44 billion. Do you see that as a good investment in the future of free speech?
Well, as an investment, it wasn't a good investment because it's valued now at 11 to 12 billion. But that doesn't matter. What he did do is keep alive the concept of free speech, because in a democracy, you're always dealing with 2.5% lunatic fringe. The cost of freedom of speech is the lunatic fringe. The minute you try and shut down the lunatic fringe, you're moving away from the concept freedom of speech. Everybody has a voice. You may not like what they say, but because they're part of the narrative, that is the core and the DNA of democracy. And so many ideas get tested, some get thrown out. And when you try and change that, again, the system self-corrects, and that's what happened here. So it's a very divided country now. We are going to have a new president with a full mandate. I mean, it looks like he's going to win the Senate and the House and the presidency. You can get a lot done for the first 2 years when you control everything. And so that's what's going to happen.
And Kara Swisher is one of the biggest haters so far, so this really isn't much of a surprise to me. It's also not surprising that they would use fear-mongering to try and sway the opinion of the people. In a CNN write-up, the network highlighted Elon Musk's goal of major cuts to government spending. Watch.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're being taxed. You're being taxed. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it either becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
Now, according to CNN, Elon Musk is going to treat the federal government just like Twitter, cutting out an insane amount of manpower on day one, something that hasn't always produced the greatest of results. They highlighted Elon Musk's interview of Governor Ron DeSantis and President-elect Trump on X, Both interviews experienced a lot of technical issues, although that could possibly be explained by the sheer volume of people that try to enter the X spaces that they opened up for them. But, here's the thing. I use X on a daily basis. I'm always reading updates and news from different accounts on there. I haven't noticed what CNN is talking about because they're saying that X is unstable when it's one of the best social media apps out there. In fact, if Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or any other platform crashes, people tend to rush to X to check if the app is down. So to say that X is janky, that would be a stretch. But the hate for these men, it runs deep within left-wing media, guys. None of them exemplifying this anger better than Reid. Watch.
Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, great, we're going to get to hear his voice again for however many years till he gets fired. They're going to lead something called the Department of Government Efficiency. They're supposed to now be in charge of cutting the budget, which is normally the job of the House of Representatives. You served in the House. Doesn't the House have to be involved some way in creating a new government agency, or can Trump just whip one up on Twitter?
No, Joy, that's right. I think Donald Trump's just handing out candy right now to his friends and family. Congress is required to establish federal departments to define the jurisdiction, to decide how it's appointed. Presidents can certainly appoint aides and non-congressional positions, but there will not be a Department of Government Efficiency without Congress, which actually raises the question, does Congress now just rubber stamp that in one of its next appropriations bill? And here's what it's going to be. This is your Project 2025 department.
Yes.
The Department of Government Efficiency by Ramaswamy and Elon, that's your Project 2025 department. Correct. Without the bad impressions that Heritage created during the campaign trail.
Are they still talking about Project 2025? That thing should have been dead and buried when their campaign fizzled during the presidential election. And are they saying that they don't want an efficient government? Like, why would you be trying to promote that unless you actually have a government job? A government that's not completely focused on spending our money like it's nothing? Because that's the message that we're hearing from legacy media. And I guess they're pulling out all the stops since MSNBC is probably going to be sold off soon. It'll be funny if Elon Musk decides to buy them too, wouldn't it? But what are your thoughts on Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy leading the charge on government efficiency? Are they right for the position, or could we do better?
Lots of breaking news on the President Trump transition front. The president-elect is picking up more key members of his new cabinet, and some major picks have just been announced. So moments ago, the president-elect revealing that tech mogul Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, and former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, also a businessman, will spearhead the Department of Government Efficiency. This is a new thing that Trump has created. The mission of all this is to cut red tape, reduce wasteful spending, and overhaul federal agencies.
Both of these men have conflicts of interest, or have investigations, or have massive contracts with the U.S. government, and they will be in a position to cut programs, cut jobs, cut budgets, and at the very least, see where all the money is getting spent. So even if they're not officially inside the government, it feels like a conflict.
So here's a good question. Is it a bad idea to place two billionaires as part of Trump's team? Because the president-elect feels that these two can do wonders together. Now, looking back at Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter, many people fear that the treatment will be the same. Twitter, now known as X, has lost around 90% of its workforce. With X being one of the biggest platforms for news in 2024, I would say that Elon Musk did pretty well with managing the social media platform. Others, though, within mainstream liberal media are not looking forward to Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy having anything to do with the government.
Cutting waste and inefficiency in federal government is something that many presidents have promised, and many Americans would like to see. But what would Elon Musk's managerial style do in a federal government context?
Well, a lot of it is jazz hands around him, and some of it's chaotic, some of them are run well, but he's always got someone behind him. Like at SpaceX, it's a woman named Glenn Shotwell or other executives. And often he comes in and he just, overthrows trash cans and says, everybody, we're going to do everything differently. That's something he does a lot. I don't think you can do that in government. At SpaceX, they've blown up a lot of rockets to get to where they are. I'm not so sure you can blow up things in the federal government quite as easily without some impact. And so it's not the thing as running a company where you have fiat to do everything.
So I think what she's trying to say here is that Elon Musk is basically a guy who takes the credit while others work, which really isn't the case because none of us are actually 100% aware of what happens behind these companies. What we do know is that Elon Musk has a grasp of everything that's going on within SpaceX, Tesla, and X. He actually knows what he's doing. What Kara is trying to do is to downplay Elon Musk's role in all these companies. Even talking about blowing up rockets while SpaceX literally brought a rocket ship back to Earth in one piece. Something that's never been done before. Now, I also do want to note that Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and of course Trump, they all have something in common. They prefer having people who are capable around them. People who are smart and who are able to do things that nobody else can, which she confirmed by saying all of that about a billionaire. Well, guys, the great wealth transfer is in full effect. And, whether it's Donald Trump that ends up winning the election or if it's Kamala Harris, oh God, we're in a world of a pickle, as my grandfather would say. Our freedoms are being stolen, guys. Credit card companies are out to get us. And if you don't understand the game, well, you end up getting played by the game. Now, if you're anything like me, guys, you were probably out of shape, maybe in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling like the system is just completely taking advantage of you. I remember for a long time, I could rarely ever get any time to spend with my wife. And it's kind of funny because where I used to work with a lot of married men. And a lot of those married men would always complain about their spouses as if they really just didn't even like their spouses, which is sounding like a pretty horrible situation. But that was the case for many of them. They didn't like who they were married to. But I was different. Anyway, through trial and error and through a lot of pain, I figured out how to gain freedom and also lose a lot of weight and actually get in shape. And guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, that was a game changer. To no longer be living paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how to get the credit cards to pay me, the power of a strong credit score. I pay thousands of dollars less per year for the same house as my neighbor just because my credit is better than his is. And this is not to brag. But this is the truth. The banks are literally taking advantage of the poor. It's like the people who can least afford it, they're charging the poor what is like unofficially called a poor tax or a tax on the poor. I'm now at a point where, number one, I don't pay for credit cards. In fact, credit card companies pay me to use their cards. And I figured out how to build a lifestyle that is just ultimately very, very healthy. I lost a tremendous amount of weight and I put on a lot of muscle. But when I was struggling, I wish I knew people who knew these things. So anyway, I decided to create a community of like-minded people who are also interested, just like me, in living better. So if you guys want to join my community, it's called the Liberty Pursuit Network. It is brand new. Come on over. I'd love to have you guys and join like-minded people. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now. And since we're talking about popularity, let's talk about the failure of Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign. Now, guys, I covered this in a previous video where you can see just how annoyed Oprah Winfrey is at the question of money. Ooh. Because did you guys know that Oprah Winfrey was paid $1 million to show up for a Kamala Harris event? And well, it's now coming out that some people might not get paid at all. That's right, guys. Hollywood celebrities, vendors, and employees are getting pissed. But guys, make sure you watch that video right after this one. As always, appreciate you guys hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. You guys are awesome and amazing. I'll see you guys next time.